The night my mother decided to turn my life into entertainment, I was sitting on the floor of a half-empty apartment, staring at a mattress that still smelled like plastic. I didn't know it yet, but in a few minutes, millions of strangers would know my name. Or at least the version of me she wanted them to laugh at. My name is Clara Whitmore. I'm 27 years old, and I work as a junior data analyst for a logistics firm in Portland, Oregon. I had just moved out 3 hours earlier. No housewarming party. No proud family photo. Just silence, a flickering ceiling light, and cold noodles eaten straight from the carton because I didn't even own a fork yet. I opened my phone to kill the quiet. That's when I saw it. Pinned to the top of my feed was my mom's post on X. A photo of my childhood bedroom. Messy, unflattering, taken deliberately from the one angle that made everything look worse. Her caption read like a joke everyone else was already in on. Finally free. Should have happened years ago. Some birds just refused to leave the nest. The likes were climbing so fast they blurred. Hundreds, then thousands. People I'd never met were laughing at a room I hadn't slept in for months. Strangers commenting like they'd raised me themselves. Calling me lazy. Calling me spoiled. Calling me a failure who needed to be pushed out. And then my family joined in. An uncle joked about how I peaked in college. A cousin posted a screenshot of an old group chat where I'd vented about being exhausted from work. Someone dug up a photo of me crying at 19 and turned it into a meme. Every refresh made it worse. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Instead, I kept scrolling, because part of me still believed this had to be a mistake. That my mom would delete it. That she'd realize what she'd done. She didn't. She replied to comments. Added laughing emojis. Told people I was too sensitive and this was just tough love. And here's the thing that broke me. She knew exactly what she was doing. My entire life, she'd told people I was dramatic, that I exaggerated, that I needed to be humbled. And now she had an audience. Hold on, before we get into the real stuff, I want to know, what are you doing at this exact moment while hearing my voice? I love seeing your answers down below in the comments. That night, sitting on the floor, surrounded by boxes labeled kitchen and hopeful, something inside me went very quiet. Not sad, not angry, focused. Because while everyone online was laughing at the version of me my mother sold them, they had no idea what she'd left out. They didn't know who paid the bills when she borrowed money and forgot to return it. They didn't know who fixed her resume at midnight, so she wouldn't lose her job. They didn't know whose credit took the hit, so the family could keep pretending everything was fine. And suddenly, I realized something dangerous. The internet didn't care about the truth. It cared about stories. And my mother had just written the first chapter. I stared at the post one last time, at the comments cheering her on, at the likes still climbing. Then I did something I'd never done before. I stopped defending myself, because if she wanted a public story, I decided I'd tell the rest of it. And I'd make sure everyone listened. By morning, the post had crossed 10,000 likes and my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. I hadn't slept. Every buzz felt like a tap on the shoulder from a stranger who thought they knew me. I brewed coffee on the floor because the counter wasn't installed yet. While it dripped, I opened a fresh note and wrote one sentence. If this is a performance, I'm changing the ending. My mother texted at 7:12 a.m. Lighten up. People love it. No apology. No concern. Just applause. I muted the family group chat. Then I did something strategic. I archived screenshots, dates, receipts, bank transfers, emails where I'd fixed her mistakes and taken the blame. I didn't plan to post them. Not yet. Planning is power. At work, my manager asked if I was okay. Apparently, a client had tagged our company under my mom's post, joking about hiring adults who could finally leave home. I smiled and said yes. Inside, something hardened. At lunch, I searched my name. The post had escaped. Reaction accounts were stitching it. Commentators guessing my age, my income, my failures. They were wrong about everything except one thing. They were watching. That's when the idea arrived. Quiet and sharp. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't beg. I would reframe. I created a new account. No profile photo. A neutral handle. Bio. Stories about moving out. Documentation encouraged. I followed no one. I posted nothing. I waited. By evening, my mother went live. She laughed. She told anecdotes. She said I'd thank her someday. The chat flew. Donations chimed. She called it accountability. I called it evidence. I clipped the live. I transcribed it. I timestamped every contradiction. Then I drafted my first thread, not as a daughter, but as a narrator. Calm. Precise. No insults. Just facts. Before posting, I asked myself one question. What would make strangers stay? The answer was stakes. So I opened with a promise. This isn't a rant. It's a timeline. I posted at 9:03 p.m. The first reply arrived in 30 seconds. Then 10. Then hundreds. People asked for part 2. They asked for sources. They asked why a mother would do this. I gave them structure, bullet points, dates, screenshots with sensitive details redacted. I never named her. I let the internet connect dots it already wanted to connect. My phone rang. It was my sister. She whispered, "What are you doing?" I told her the truth. I'm finishing the story. That night, I slept for 3 hours and woke to a notification that changed everything. A verification request. Then a message from a journalist asking for comment. Then another from a creator with 1 million followers asking to collaborate. Meanwhile, my mother noticed. She subtweeted. She joked about anonymous haters. She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. Everyone else did. I watched the numbers rise with a steadiness that surprised me. Not joy. Not revenge. Control. Because here's the part she never learned. Attention is a currency, and she'd handed me the mint. But power attracts pressure, and pressure reveals cracks. At 2:18 a.m., a DM arrived from someone claiming to be a family friend. It contained one sentence and a screenshot I wasn't supposed to see. Ask your mom about the loan. My hands went cold, because that loan wasn't a joke. It was the thing we never talked about. And if it came out, it wouldn't just embarrass her. It would end her. I stared at the message, then at the blank box where my next post would go. And I realized the next move would decide who controlled the story forever. I didn't reply. I backed up the files twice and set an alarm. At dawn, I would choose whether to protect my family or protect the truth. Both options had consequences. One would keep peace and erase me again. The other would burn bridges and light the path forward. I closed my laptop and listened to the city breathe through the window. Somewhere, my mother was sleeping, confident the joke was still hers. Somewhere else, the audience was refreshing, waiting. And I understood the rule of this game at last. Silence was consent, timing was leverage, and the next post would not be kind. I watched the cursor blink, counting breaths, knowing that when morning came, one click would split my life in two, and there would be no way to stitch it back together. The choice waited, heavy, irreversible, and perfectly timed. At dawn, my alarm rang like a verdict. I didn't check my phone. I showered, dressed, and sat on the edge of the mattress, breathing. Control starts with routine. By the time I opened my laptop, the thread had doubled overnight. People weren't laughing anymore. They were asking careful questions. That scared me more. Care turns curiosity into accountability. I drafted 3 versions of the next post and deleted them all. Then I called my sister. She answered on the 3rd ring. I told her about the loan message. Silence stretched. She said, "You promised." I had. Years ago, I promised I wouldn't embarrass Mom. At the time, it felt like loyalty. Now it felt like a leash. My sister didn't argue. She just asked what I wanted. I wanted the truth to stand without cruelty. So I posted the timeline. Not the loan. Yet. The timeline showed dates I paid utilities, receipts for groceries, messages where my mother asked me to float her for a month. I wrote one line above it all. Context changes jokes. The response was immediate. People apologized. Some deleted comments. Others doubled down. Polarization meant reach. At work, HR emailed me a gentle check-in. They'd seen the tags. I replied with professionalism and proof. By noon, a podcaster requested an interview. I declined. Not yet. Timing matters. My mother finally called. She sounded amused and wounded at once. She said I was humiliating her. I said I was documenting. She warned me about consequences. I asked which ones worried her. The line went quiet. After we hung up, my anonymous account gained a blue check. Verification unlocked DMs. Among them was the lender. He provided a contract. My name wasn't on it. Hers was. I didn't post it. I saved it. Leverage works best when unused. That evening, my mother posted again. She framed herself as the victim. The audience wavered. I drafted a response and scheduled it. Midnight. Before closing my laptop, I wrote a final sentence. Tomorrow, I answer one question. I set the timer and lay back. Outside, sirens passed. Inside, the choice hardened. Protect her reputation or end the joke. At midnight, the post would go live. And either way, someone would lose. At exactly midnight, the scheduled post went live. Not dramatic. Not angry. Just a single question in bold. Who paid the bills while the jokes were trending? Beneath it, I attached 3 screenshots. Redacted, time-stamped, undeniable. No accusations. No insults. Just math. The internet did the rest. Within minutes, people connected patterns. Replies slowed, then sharpened. Sympathy replaced mockery. My mother's replies became defensive, then erratic. She deleted one post, reposted another, blamed context, blamed tone. Someone clipped everything. The audience smelled panic. My phone rang. I let it ring. At 12:17, she texted, "Take it down. Now." I didn't respond. Instead, I posted a follow-up. "I'm answering questions in the morning. Bring receipts." That line did something. It invited scrutiny, not drama. Creators switched sides. Commentary turned forensic. I slept lightly, dreaming of clocks. Morning broke with sunlight and sirens. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and began. I answered questions calmly. I linked documents. I corrected errors without sarcasm. Trust grew. A journalist published a piece. Neutral headline. Facts-centered. My employer emailed again. This time, supportive. We value transparency. At noon, my mother posted an apology. It was vague. It blamed stress. It named no harm. The comments weren't buying it. They asked for specifics. She went quiet. At 3:06, the lender DM'd. "She's calling me." I replied once. "Don't." Then I posted my last update of the day. Boundaries are not betrayal. That sentence hit harder than receipts. People shared it. Screenshots multiplied. The tone shifted from entertainment to reckoning. My sister called, crying. She asked if mom would lose her job. I said the truth. "I don't know." Silence. Then she said, "I get it." That mattered. By evening, the post my mother started was buried under analysis, not laughter. She messaged again. This time, an apology without emojis. She asked to meet. I didn't agree. I asked for mediation. A pause fell, then acceptance. Control returned to my body. I realized revenge wasn't destruction. It was correction. I closed the laptop and stood in my quiet apartment. Boxes still unopened. The internet still watching. The cliff remained. Tomorrow, the meeting. Tomorrow, the truth in person. Tonight, I breathed. Not triumphant. Prepared. Because stories don't end when posts stop. They end when behavior changes. And change hates witnesses. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, my phone buzzed. One new message. From her. "Please." I didn't answer. Not yet. Leverage thrives on patience. I set my alarm. Tomorrow would test whether accountability survives daylight. I lay down, counting breaths, knowing the audience would wake hungry. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of their appetite. Because I finally understood the cost of silence, and I was done paying it. The cursor blinked in my mind, waiting. Morning would decide if reconciliation was possible, or if distance was mercy. Either way, the joke was over. The story had teeth, and it was finally facing forward. I closed my eyes, steady, knowing whatever came next would be earned. Sleep came shallow, full of echoes. When dawn returned, I woke ready, not hopeful. Hope had been replaced by resolve. Messages stacked like evidence. Analysts debated motives. Lawyers speculated consequences. I ignored them, focused on one task: prepare. I printed timelines, highlighted dates, rehearsed boundaries. The meeting loomed like weather. I chose neutral ground, a mediator's office, glass walls, witnesses. On my way out, my phone buzzed again. A notification from my anonymous account. Follower count climbing. I exhaled. This wasn't about numbers anymore. It was about precedent. If I folded, the pattern would repeat. If I stood, someone else might breathe easier. I stepped into the hall, keys cold in my palm, and felt the weight lift slightly. Consequences would come, but so would clarity. I sent one final message to the audience. Updates after mediation. Then I logged off. Silence followed, deliberate. The city kept moving. My steps matched its rhythm. Ahead, a door waited. Behind, a chapter closed. Whatever happened inside that room would ripple outward. I squared my shoulders, rang the bell, and let the future answer. The handle turned. Voices hushed. Eyes lifted. This was no longer online. This was real. And as I stepped forward, I knew one thing for certain. Truth doesn't whisper forever. It waits, then speaks. Today, it would. I crossed the threshold, leaving the echo behind, ready to hear what accountability sounds like face to face, with nowhere left to hide. The door closed. Breathing steadied. The reckoning began. Now. The mediator's office smelled like lemon cleaner and quiet authority. Glass walls, neutral chairs, a clock that ticked too loudly. My mother arrived 10 minutes late, eyes red, posture defensive. She didn't hug me. She sat. The mediator explained rules. No interruptions. Facts over feelings. My mother nodded, already preparing a speech. I waited. Silence is a strategy. She began with how hurt she felt, how the internet misunderstood her humor, how I'd taken things too far. I let her finish. Then I placed the timeline on the table. Dates, amounts, messages. I spoke calmly, evenly, like I was reading weather. Each line drained color from her face. She denied one point. I slid the screenshot closer. She tried to joke. The mediator didn't smile. The room tightened. I explained boundaries. No posting about me. No financial requests. Mediation for disputes. She asked if I delete everything. I said no. Correction doesn't require erasure. She accused me of revenge. I corrected her. Accountability. The mediator asked if she accepted the terms. She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. I stood. I said the meeting was over. My mother cried then. Real tears. Not for me. For control slipping. I left without raising my voice. Outside, my phone buzzed. Notifications stacked. I ignored them. I walked 3 blocks, breathing cold air, letting resolve settle. Back home, I posted a brief update. Mediation completed. Boundaries set. No details. The audience respected restraint. That surprised me. Power changes crowds. My sister called later. She said Mom was scared. I said fear can be useful if it leads to change. That night, my mother posted a final message. A clearer apology. Still imperfect. The comments were split. I didn't engage. I logged off. Days passed. The noise faded into analysis, then memory. My life returned in pieces. Work normalized. Sleep improved. Then a letter arrived. Certified. From my mother's employer. They'd reviewed conduct. Training required. Probation imposed. Consequences without catastrophe. Balance. I felt no joy. Only relief. A week later, My mother texted, "I'm starting therapy." I waited an hour, then replied, "Good." Boundaries held. The anonymous account grew quietly. People sent their stories. I listened. I didn't post them. I learned something important. Revenge that lasts looks like prevention. I began drafting a final thread. Not about her. About patterns. About silence. About documentation. Before posting, I hesitated. Endings matter. I wanted this to close clean. I wrote one line and stopped. If someone turns you into a joke, you don't have to laugh. I scheduled it. Midnight again. Some symmetry felt right. As the hour approached, my mother called. I didn't answer. I wasn't ready. Midnight came. The post went live. It spread steadily, not explosively. People thanked me. Some unfollowed. That was fine. I closed the account after 24 hours. No grand finale. Just an exit. In my quiet apartment, boxes finally unpacked, I cooked a real meal. I ate at a table. The ceiling light didn't flicker anymore. I checked my phone once. A message from my sister. "Proud of you." I smiled. Not wide. Real. Revenge stories usually end with ruin. This one ended with structure. Boundaries. Consequences proportionate to harm. The joke died because it stopped being funny. I slept deeply. In the morning, I woke without dread. The internet moved on. I did too. But somewhere, a precedent remained. Silence isn't grace. It's permission. And permission can be revoked. As I dressed for work, I caught my reflection. Steadier. Older. I thought about the last 2 weeks and what they taught me. Control is quiet. Timing is everything. And the most effective revenge is a life that no longer fits the punchline. I locked the door, keys warm in my hand, and stepped into the day, knowing the story wasn't mine to carry anymore. It had done its work. Now it could rest. The quiet after everything felt unfamiliar, like standing in a room after the music stops. I expected relief to be loud, dramatic, obvious. Instead, it arrived as space. Space to think, space to notice what had changed. At work, people stopped whispering. Meetings returned to agendas and deadlines. My manager asked about a promotion track. The future crept back in without asking permission. At home, I rearranged furniture slowly, deliberately. Each box emptied felt symbolic, but I refused to romanticize it. Healing is maintenance, not a montage. I deleted screenshots I no longer needed, kept the ones that mattered. Documentation is not bitterness. It is memory with structure. 3 weeks after mediation, my mother emailed, not texted. An email implies effort. She acknowledged specific harm. She named the post. She admitted enjoying the attention. That sentence mattered. I replied once, thanking her for clarity and restating boundaries. No debate. No reopening wounds. The exchange ended there, clean as a closed file. Meanwhile, the anonymous account's echo lingered. People recognized me at coffee shops, not by name, but by story. "You're the boundaries girl," someone said, smiling kindly. I corrected her gently. "I'm just a person." Labels flatten. I wanted depth back. A producer reached out again, offering a deal. Adaptation. Dramatization. Money. I declined. Turning pain into content can calcify it. I wasn't interested in living inside the moment forever. I wanted forward motion. Then something unexpected happened. A colleague shared her own story during lunch. Quiet voice. Similar patterns. She said watching me had changed how she handled her family. That landed heavier than any metric. Influence without spectacle. That was the point. I started therapy myself, not because I was broken, but because I was done guessing. Sessions became maps. We traced cycles. We named roles. We practiced scripts for future contact. Preparation replaced fear. One afternoon, a notification slipped through my filters. My mother had liked a post of mine. A normal post. A photo of soup I'd made. No caption about growth. No public performance. Just presence. I didn't react. That restraint felt like victory. Months passed. The internet found new villains, new jokes. I watched from a distance, immune. When coworkers asked, I summarized in one sentence. We set boundaries. The simplicity surprised them. It surprised me too. On a rainy Saturday, my sister visited. We cooked together, laughed, avoided landmines without tiptoeing. She told me Mom was quieter now, more careful. Consequences lingered. Good. Later, alone, I opened the old note on my phone. The first sentence still sat there. If this is a performance, I'm changing the ending. I added a second line. Endings are choices, not accidents. I archived the note. Some chapters don't need rereading. Outside, rain softened the city. Inside, I felt steady, not triumphant, complete. The revenge everyone expects is explosive, public, final. The one that lasts is duller. It's policies, distance, calm follow-through. It doesn't trend, but it works. When I think about that first night on the floor, noodles cold, phone glowing, I don't feel anger. I feel gratitude for the version of me who paused instead of pleading, who planned, who waited, who chose herself without burning the house down. Tomorrow will bring new tests, holidays, milestones. I'm ready. I have tools now. And tools beat outrage every time. If you're listening to this and recognizing pieces of your own life, remember this. You don't owe anyone access to your dignity. You can step out of the joke. You can end the scene. Quietly, effectively. I turned off the light, closed the door, and let the night be just a night. No audience. No captions. Just life continuing. That night taught me a rule I carry forward. Visibility is optional. Integrity is not. You can choose when to speak, when to wait, and when to walk away. None of those choices make you weak. They make you deliberate. If someone demands a reaction, pause. If they demand silence, document. Power is rarely loud. It prefers patience, proof, and boundaries enforced without apology. I didn't win by shouting. I won by standing still until the ground shifted. That lesson will outlast trends, platforms, and outrage cycles. It fits in a pocket and works anywhere. I share it now because stories end, but principles repeat, and if you learn them once, you don't have to relearn them painfully every time someone mistakes your silence for permission again in public spaces that reward cruelty and confusion far too often. Time doesn't announce when it's done teaching you something. It just stops repeating the lesson. Weeks turned into months, and the tension I'd learned to live with never came back. That absence told me more than any apology ever could. My life stopped bracing for impact. That's how I knew things had truly changed. The first real test came quietly. A holiday invitation. Neutral wording. No public posts. No performative warmth. Just a time, a place, an option. I didn't answer right away. I sat with the decision, not the fear. Choice feels different when it's real. I agreed to a short visit. Daylight hours only. Boundaries written, not implied. Walking into that house again felt like entering a museum exhibit of my past. Familiar furniture. Fewer photos. My mother hugged me carefully, like someone handling glass. We spoke about safe things. Weather. Work. Soup recipes. It was awkward, but it was honest. She didn't mention the internet. Neither did I. Accountability doesn't need a stage. Later, alone in the guest bathroom, I caught my reflection. I looked taller. Not physically. Internally. The space inside me had expanded. I realized I wasn't waiting for her to revert. I was ready if she did. That readiness was freedom. Back home, I resumed routines that had nothing to do with recovery. Gym on Tuesdays. Groceries on Fridays. Boring became beautiful. Stability stopped feeling like an intermission and started feeling like a life. Then a message arrived from someone I didn't expect. My aunt. The same one who'd laughed publicly. She apologized without qualifiers. Said watching everything unfold had made her rethink her own behavior. I accepted the apology and set a limit. No reposting. No commentary. She agreed. Growth is uneven, but it counts. Professionally, opportunities opened. I led a project. Presented to executives. Confidence followed consistency. Nobody asked about the story anymore. That chapter had lost relevance. I liked it that way. One evening, scrolling absentmindedly, I saw a familiar pattern trending. A parent shaming a child online for motivation. The comments echoed the past. I felt the old spark, then let it fade. I didn't jump in. I didn't need to. Someone else already was, armed with language I recognized. Boundaries, documentation, consequences. The lesson had traveled. I understood then that revenge isn't always personal. Sometimes it's systemic. You disrupt a pattern once, and it weakens everywhere. That realization softened something in me. I hadn't just defended myself. I'd altered the terrain. My mother called later that week. She asked how work was going. She listened to the answer. She didn't post about it. When we hung up, I felt neutral. Not hopeful. Not guarded. Neutral is earned. I revisited the old apartment floor in my memory. The cold noodles. The buzzing phone. The feeling of being small. That version of me hadn't disappeared. She'd been integrated. Strength doesn't erase vulnerability. It protects it. Here's what nobody tells you about revenge stories. The real ending isn't dramatic. It's administrative. Policies. Distance. Calm follow-up. It's choosing not to attend arguments that require you to shrink to participate. I keep a rule now. If someone needs me to be embarrassed for them to feel powerful, I don't engage. If they need an audience, I leave the room. If they demand access, I offer terms. This isn't cruelty. It's clarity. Sometimes people ask if I regret making it public. I tell them the truth. I regret waiting as long as I did. Silence didn't protect me. It protected the pattern. Once I saw that, the choice became simple. The internet forgot, as it always does. But my life remembered. It remembered the boundary and built around it. That's how cycles end. Not with noise, but with structure that refuses to bend back. As I write this, the window is open. The city sounds normal. My phone is face down. There's nothing urgent waiting. That's the payoff nobody clips. Peace that doesn't need witnesses. And yet, the story isn't fully done. Because consequences echo. And the final ripple hadn't reached shore yet. When it did, it would test whether the change was real or just quiet. That moment was coming. I could feel it. And when it arrived, I'd answer the same way I always had since that first night. Calm. Prepared. Unmoved. The moment arrived disguised as routine. An email, forwarded by my sister, subject line plain, tone careful. My mother's workplace had scheduled a compliance review. Standard procedure, they said. Not punitive. Informational. But attached was a request. A statement from me, voluntary, clarifying the timeline. The past knocked softly, asking for a signature. I didn't answer immediately. I printed the request and placed it on the table, next to a mug of cooling tea. Old instincts stirred, the reflex to shield, to smooth, to minimize. I let them surface without acting. Therapy had taught me that urges aren't orders. They're data. I called the mediator. We reviewed the language together. Facts only. No adjectives. No motive. Truth without theater. That was the line. I agreed to provide a statement, limited in scope, consistent with what was already public. No new revelations. No embellishments. Precision protects. When I told my sister, she exhaled. She said Mom was anxious. I said anxiety can be productive if it leads to accountability. She didn't argue. Growth had reached her too. Writing the statement took 20 minutes. Revising it took an hour. I removed anything that sounded like emotion. I left dates, amounts, screenshots referenced but not attached. The document read like weather again. Clear. Unapologetic. Accurate. I sent it at noon. The waiting felt familiar, but weaker. I went about my day. Meetings. Errands. Dinner. I didn't check my phone obsessively. That was new. Control had shifted internally. Even if consequences followed, I wasn't bracing for collapse. I trusted the structure. 2 days later, the response came. The review concluded. Additional training mandated. Public conduct policy reiterated. No termination. No spectacle. A corrective outcome. Proportionate. Boring. Perfect. My mother called that evening. She sounded tired, not angry. She thanked me for being fair. Not generous. Fair. I accepted the thanks and restated boundaries. She agreed without bargaining. That mattered more than tone. After we hung up, I noticed something subtle. The urge to rehash was gone. I didn't replay the call. I didn't draft imaginary replies. Closure isn't a feeling. It's the absence of rumination. Days passed. Then weeks. The story faded further. My anonymous account remained closed. No temptation to reopen it. Attention had lost its pull. I'd learned its mechanics. Once you see the wires, the illusion breaks. At work, I mentored a new hire. She asked how to navigate difficult stakeholders. I taught her documentation. Calm escalation. Boundaries framed as process. I didn't tell her why I knew it worked. I didn't need to. One afternoon, a message arrived from a stranger. Long, thoughtful. They said my story helped them confront a parent privately, without going viral. They thanked me for showing another path. That message stayed with me. Influence without spectacle again. I reflected on revenge as a concept. The fantasy promises catharsis. The reality that lasts is correction. Correction requires patience, proof, and restraint. It requires resisting the urge to win loudly. The final ripple arrived quietly, as ripples do. A family gathering photo appeared on my feed, posted by my aunt. I was in it, smiling. The caption named the moment without commentary. No jokes. No subtext. Just presence. I didn't ask for it. I allowed it. I understood then that cycles end when enough people stop feeding them. Not when one person explodes, but when many adjust. I'd nudged the system. Others had followed. That night, I walked through my neighborhood, lights warm in windows, lives unfolding unrecorded. I felt ordinary in the best way. The story had done its work. It no longer needed narration. If you're still listening, know this. You can choose proportion over drama. You can protect yourself without becoming what hurt you. The internet rewards extremes, but life rewards consistency. I went home, turned off my phone, and slept. No dreams of clocks. No buzzing. Just rest. The next morning, I woke with a clear thought. The past can ask for your voice, but it doesn't get to dictate your volume. You decide how much to give, when, and why. That decision, made calmly, is power. And with that understanding settled, the last echo finally disappeared. The last phase didn't announce itself with conflict. It arrived as opportunity. A new role opened at work, cross-functional, visible. My manager asked if I wanted it. I said yes without hesitation. Growth is easier when you're not carrying other people's chaos. Preparation followed. I built a plan, documented risks, aligned stakeholders. Familiar skills sharpened by experience. When the announcement went out, congratulations came without caveats. No whispers. No jokes. My name stood on its own. Around the same time, my mother suggested a check-in, just us, coffee in a public place. I considered the terms. Daytime. An hour. Topics open, but exit guaranteed. Boundaries agreed in writing. We met on a Tuesday. She arrived early. That was new. She asked about my project and listened. I shared selectively. She didn't interrupt. She apologized again, this time without defending herself. I acknowledged it and moved on. Repair doesn't require repetition. Midway through, she asked a careful question. Do you think people can change? I answered carefully too. Yes, when consequences stick. She nodded. The conversation ended on time. No spillover. Progress measured, not proclaimed. Afterward, I sat alone and noticed something else had changed. I wasn't scanning for threats. Hypervigilance had loosened its grip. That's when I realized the revenge phase was over. What remained was stewardship of a quieter life. The internet, of course, kept producing content. Another viral shaming. Another pylon. I didn't comment. I didn't need to. My work now was local, specific, repeatable. Boundaries aren't a moment. They're a practice. Then an email arrived that complicated the calm. A legal notice. Not a lawsuit. A request. My mother's employer sought confirmation that the matter was resolved to my satisfaction. The phrasing mattered. Satisfaction is subjective. Resolution is structural. I consulted counsel. We crafted a response. I affirmed resolution contingent on continued compliance. No retaliation. No public reference. Training completed. Policies enforced. The document closed a loop I didn't know was open. Sending it felt final. But endings have a way of testing themselves. That evening, my sister called, voice tight. Our mother had been asked to facilitate a workshop on digital conduct, using anonymized scenarios. Accountability turned into responsibility. Growth turned into exposure. My sister asked if this was my fault. I paused. Cause and effect are not the same as blame. It's not fault, I said. It's outcome. She was quiet. Then she laughed softly. She's terrified, she said. I didn't celebrate. Fear isn't the goal. Change is. Later, alone, I wondered if I'd pushed too far. Doubt is a sign you care. I reviewed the record. Proportionate. Fair. Necessary. The feeling passed. The next morning, a message appeared from my mother. I'm doing the workshop. No resentment. Just fact. I replied once. I hope it helps. That was true. At work, my project hit its first milestone. Applause in a meeting room. Real, earned. I felt anchored. The story that once defined me had shrunk to context. Yet one final choice remained. An invitation from a major channel to tell the story. Name names. Monetize closure. The offer was generous. The audience guaranteed. The temptation real. I didn't answer immediately. I set the email aside and went for a walk. The city moved. People lived. I asked myself one question. Would this add clarity or reopen spectacle? The answer mattered. And whatever I chose would determine how the story ended, not online, but inside me. I returned home, opened my laptop, and hovered over the reply button, knowing the next sentence would either reopen the wound for strangers or seal it for good. I closed the screen and set a timer for morning. Decisions age better overnight. If I said yes, the story would spike, names would trend, and peace would thin. If I said no, the lesson would stay intact, private, durable. I weighed impact against ego, reach against repair. Somewhere between those poles, my future waited. I wrote 2 drafts. One declined politely. One accepted conditionally. I saved neither. Instead, I made tea, watched steam rise, and practiced letting the answer arrive without force. The clock ticked. The city slept. By dawn, I would choose which ending deserved oxygen and which deserved rest. The cursor would move or it wouldn't. Either way, the decision would be mine. Before sleep, I imagined tomorrow's headline, then erased it, choosing the quieter future that asks nothing from strangers and everything from me alone now. Dawn arrived like a question. The email still open, the cursor blinking, waiting for judgment. I sipped coffee slowly, letting warmth fill more than my hands. This was the moment every decision had led to, the moment that would define the narrative forever, at least the part one controlled. I chose silence for the public offer. Not out of fear, not out of mercy, out of principle. Some stories aren't meant to be performed again. They are meant to be completed in private. The relief that followed was immediate. No spikes, no viral attention, just the kind of quiet that carries weight without noise. I drafted a final note to my mother and sister. Concise. Measured. I've completed the process I needed to finish. Please honor the boundaries we agreed on. I expect the same. I didn't explain. I didn't justify. I didn't add emotion. Clarity replaces drama. I sent it, then stepped back. The response came within the hour. My mother acknowledged it with brevity. No excuses, no complaints. My sister responded with gratitude for the calm, the fairness, the protection of our shared life. That small acknowledgement felt larger than anything online ever could. At work, the project I had led successfully reached its first full milestone. The applause was subtle, internalized. Colleagues congratulated me, unaware of the backstory that had sharpened my resolve, my strategy, my patience. Power, I realized, doesn't always need an audience. Sometimes it's just a quiet, repeated exercise of integrity. That afternoon, I walked through the neighborhood I had grown to know so intimately during the months of chaos. The air was crisp, the streetlights glowing softly against the early winter haze. For the first time in years, I didn't check my phone every few seconds. I didn't anticipate chaos. I simply existed, unobserved, unmeasured. That was victory. I reflected on the entire sequence of events. The post, the escalation, the documentation, the mediation, the training, the boundaries. Revenge isn't a single act. It's a process. It's planning. It's precision. It's patience. And the most powerful kind doesn't humiliate. It corrects. It teaches. It safeguards. It ensures the same mistakes don't repeat. That evening, I opened the anonymous account one last time. No post. No comment. Just a glance at the follower count and the quiet affirmation that the work had been done. I archived everything. Screenshots, threads, messages. Nothing was deleted. Everything was preserved. Because documentation is memory, not malice. Later, a thought struck me. The internet never forgets, but life can. I didn't need validation from strangers anymore. I didn't need likes, emojis, or comments. The lesson had been internalized, the boundaries enforced, the story concluded. What remained was the calm authority of someone who had navigated chaos without losing herself. I wrote one last reflection in my personal journal. The joke is over. The story has teeth now, but the teeth are used only when necessary. Silence is not weakness. Patience is not passivity. Boundaries are protection. And integrity is stronger than any applause. I closed the journal with deliberate motion, knowing it would be years before I revisited this chapter, and that would be enough. A knock on the door interrupted the quiet. My sister, smiling softly, holding tea. We didn't need to speak at length. We didn't need explanations. Shared glances carried the weight of everything. The laughter, the chaos, the lessons, the resolution. We sat together, drinking tea, letting warmth and presence replace tension and noise. That was the moment that truly signified closure. Weeks later, life returned to rhythm. I unpacked the final boxes in my apartment. The lights no longer flickered. The floor no longer echoed with dread. Even my phone sat mostly silent. Freedom, I realized, is measured in ordinary days, not in spectacles. The revenge I had enacted had nothing to do with performance. It had everything to do with reclaiming control, peace, and self-respect. Looking back, I understood what I had truly learned. Revenge is not about hurting someone who wronged you. It's about ending the patterns that allow harm to persist. It's about protecting yourself, teaching consequences, and insisting that silence and boundaries are not negotiable. It's about creating a life so intact and deliberate that the old chaos has no place to re-enter. And finally, I knew the last, most important lesson. Stories can be powerful, but the narrator holds the authority. I had told the story, not for applause, not for revenge, not for public entertainment. I had told it to preserve myself, and in doing so, to ensure that respect, not spectacle, would endure. If you've been listening, reading, watching, and feeling this journey with me, I want you to take one principle from it. You are not required to participate in someone else's narrative at the expense of your dignity. Stand still. Document. Set boundaries. Protect yourself. The rest will follow in time. Before I go, a small request for those still here. If this story has resonated with you, if it has shown you a path to reclaim control and integrity, please like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Silent Revenge Lab. Your support allows stories like this to reach others, quietly empowering change without spectacle. The city hums outside my window. My apartment is calm. The boxes are finally gone. And I sit here, sipping tea, knowing the joke is over. The story is complete, and my life is finally my own.